Hello and welcome, my name is Piéra and today I'm here with my review and discussion of Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. So for those of you who are not aware, Tower of Dawn is kind of like the 7th book in the Throne of Glass series. It's a Chaol Westfall centered, started off as novella but is now a full novel, as you can see. So Tower of Dawn follows Chaol and Nesrin's story as they jet off to the southern continent, and it also kind of takes place at the same time as Empire of Storms. So while Empire of Storms is happening, so is Tower of Dawn. And throughout the book there are a few crossovers of what's going on in Empire of Storms, reaching Chaol and keeping him in the loop, I guess. So I wasn't overly thrilled or excited or hyped for Tower of Dawn. I mean, in the early books, so book 1 and 2, Chaol was my life. I absolutely loved Chaol. Obviously he went through some severe character changes in the later books, with him being a total tool in Queen of Shadows, but we've got feelings on that we'll just push right aside. In Tower of Dawn, I don't know, it's hard to explain. When I first picked up the Throne of Glass series, I absolutely loved it. The first 3 books were just the greatest books that I had read at the time. Like, I was really, really loving them. I loved the characters, I loved the plot, I loved Sarah J. Maas's writing style. Queen of Shadows and Empire of Storms, for me, I really didn't like. Like, there are bits of it I liked, there are, you know, plot points or character traits that I really enjoyed, but overall, I didn't love either of them. So I wasn't really looking forward to Tower of Dawn. I didn't go out of my way to pre-order it. I didn't hype up for it, I guess is the best way for it. But in saying that, I was pleasantly surprised whilst reading Tower of Dawn. Bloomsbury sent me a copy for review, so thank you Bloomsbury. And I mean, my general thoughts on the cover, which is a thing, I like the cover itself. I don't like the fact that it's part of the series. I'm also unsure about the fact of how I feel about Chaol getting his own novella when, like, there are so many other characters that could also. I do think it would have been weird having Chaol on the cover with Aelin and then just Chaol and then more Aelin. I would have preferred Chaol on the cover in his wheelchair because that would have just been fantastic. That was what I was looking for. There's a fan art cover that I'll post here that was going around for a while and I was like, oh, why couldn't this be the cover? This is so much cooler. Like I said, I do like the cover of Tower of Dawn, but I would like it separately than the rest. So apart from not being overly hyped for Tower of Dawn, I did find that I actually kind of enjoyed it. So in Tower of Dawn, we obviously get to see the southern continent, we get introduced to, I guess, more world building, we get a shit ton of more characters, and it just kind of broadens the scope of the world and I guess just how big the war is going to be. I struggle with, I guess, the redemption arc for Chaol. Well, it's not so much a redemption arc as, like, I find Chaol, apart from Aelin, Chaol has been one of the only characters that I've really strongly noticed, I guess, a character arc or a growth or a story. From where he was in book 1 and 2, where he was pretty firm on what he believed. Book 3, 4, and 5, obviously his world being changed, all the things that he was taught growing up as a kid, and being introduced to all these other elements, such as obviously magic being a big thing. And a lot of that he does touch on in Tower of Dawn. He mentions his struggles with it, his thoughts on it. So I guess in that regard, I appreciated Chaol more as a well-rounded character in the fact that we can see his flaws, we can see his thought process. And that's the thing I really liked about, I guess, Sarah's writing, in that it's similar with Aelin. Like, we see what she's going through and I guess, well, I mean, for Aelin, most of the way that she plans things and plots things. I mean, I wouldn't say that, again, that this book has changed my life, that has nearly even remotely close to the effect that the first 3, I don't know if we're counting Assassin's Blade. I'm saying, like, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Air of Fire had on me. But I guess also Assassin's Blade because I did enjoy it. But those 3 books had a profound impact on me as a reader, on me as a person, and this just didn't have the same effect. I think I preferred it over Empire of Storms, possibly also Queen of Shadows as a novel itself. Plot-wise, not much really happened. It was more world-building and Chaol obviously going on his journey of self-discovery and obviously healing. We do meet a character that we met obviously in the Assassin's Blade. For if you don't already know, I'm not sure if it's a huge spoiler, but it's kind of obvious. Irene Towers, who we obviously met in the Assassin's Blade with the Assassin and the Healer. I now love Irene a lot. I didn't love her too much in The Assassin and the Healer. Obviously we didn't get to see much of her as a character, so much as a side character to Aelin. But throughout reading this book in general, I really like Irene. I think she's a good character. I liked seeing her, I want to say 3D-ness, but it always sounds real weird. A thing that I didn't like and I have never really liked, and I don't know if she's gonna grow on me in the next book, like, for example, a lead did. I don't like Nezrin. I don't really care about Nezrin, like, at all. I don't know why she was really brought in. I feel like she was brought in as a love interest and then things changed. I like the fact that it shows more relationships in terms of, at this point I feel like pretty much everyone in Sarah J Maas's books have been paired up. Everyone has a mate or a partner or a wife or a husband or a someone. And so, without spoiling too much, I was interested to see the relationship between Chaol and Nezrin and Irene without spoiling it, but just their general relationship, people, enjoyment, whatever. In the similar way that it was with Chaol, Dorian, Aelin, and Rowan, the fact that, and I guess Sam as well, that it's not just this character has one love interest for the whole time, it's she's gone through a variety of love interests. So it was similar to kind of that in the way that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed most of our new characters. There were a few characters that I were kind of like, well, what's the point of you? Are you really necessary? Like, but there are some cool little link-ups throughout this book that I really enjoyed. I would definitely recommend reading this book before reading the final Throne of Glass book, so finish Empire of Storms and then read this book, because otherwise, like, it does have some big revelations in it, some, like I said, new character introductions. I don't know how well, I don't know if Sarah's planning to, like, I assume she will, like, introduce them again once we all meet up together. And now for some spoilers. So if you have not finished Tower of Dawn and you do not want to be spoiled, please exit the video now. Feel free to come back once you have read Tower of Dawn. One thing that I've noticed with my reviews of books, like, I've literally just finished this book not 5 minutes ago. Like, I just read the end page and closed it. So these are my, like, very initial thoughts. It is likely that I'm sure they'll change in the future. I'm sure someone will bring something up that I'm like, oh hey, I didn't think of that, now that you have a point. Yeah, I like it or I don't like it or whatever. So, for example, like my Akka War and my Queen of Shadows and my Empire of Storms review, I find it especially with Sarah's books. Maybe it's just because they're so popular and they're so talked about, that I'll have my initial thoughts of just like, I've just finished reading it, these are my first thoughts, but then people will mention things and bring things up and I'll think of it longer and I'll be like, oh okay, yeah, no, my opinions have changed. So, these are my initial opinions for Tower of Dawn. They will likely change, but this is them as they stand. So the thing that I think let me down for in this book the most part was the relationships. Like I said earlier, everyone seems to get a partner, and I don't like it. I don't like Chaol and Irene, like, the fuck they got married, like, what, why? Like, did you really know each other? Like, I get that she helped you heal. It's kind of similar with the Rowan and Aelin thing, I guess. I liked Rowan and I liked Aelin, but together I don't like them. I like Chaol and I like Irene, but together I don't like them. So the fact that they got married in, like, the last 10 pages, I was like, why? I will say that I managed to make it through Tower of Dawn without shedding a tear. I laughed a few times. But it probably, like, the last 30 pages is when, like, my eyes started to well up and, like, maybe a single tear, like, trailed down my face. I wouldn't say that I was like sobbing or crying like I was in some previous books, but there were definitely the feels towards the end of the books, and it wasn't so much, it was more just like single lines that characters say, or literally just Sarah's writing style and the way she kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like she sets up the line with like the few lines beforehand, like they lead you into like the line that will like ruin your life or like really pull on your heartstrings, and I felt like that happened a few times at the end of the book. Like I said earlier, I don't give two shits about Nezrin. Like, I'm sure she's great, but I don't care about her. The only thing I really care about her story is like how much she loves her family. That's literally it. And even then, that doesn't really come into play until like the last, I mean, like, it comes into play, but it doesn't really come into play until like the last 10 pages. And then I was like, aw, cute. But I was like, I don't care. And the fact that she ends up like, I guess, engaged to Sartak is, I don't know, I'm gonna butcher all these names, but I was just kind of like, why? And like the fact that he's like Neat's arrow and there's legends of you and all of a sudden she's a singer, I was like, I don't care. Like, you're trying really hard to make me like this character that I just don't care about. Like, she's not a bad character, she hasn't done anything horrible, she just hasn't done anything great either. And she gets her own ruck, which I was kind of just like, yeah, so I basically just couldn't give two shits about Nezrin, and I don't know if I'm gonna give two shits about her in the next book. I feel like this is what happened with Elide though. Like, when we were first introduced to Elide, I just could not care less. The next book I was like, yes queen, I love you. Obviously we were introduced to Nezrin in the last book and I was still just kind of like, meh. This book I was just like, no. So maybe she'll do some redeeming things in the next book, who knows. I read it as like, I wanted to read it as like Kargan, but I know it's like Kogan, which is even weirder and I don't like it. But all of like the Kogan's children, I just didn't care about them. Like, I didn't care. I feel like I would have cared more about Kamalan, or what, the dead one. Like, she sounded like a more interesting character than any of the others. Like, the sister was obviously a complete bitch, and that's like her angle. And I was like, of course she's just gonna be a bitch, but she was really nice to Irene, which I liked. I appreciated there was just like, even though there was that weird power struggle a few times, I liked that they were friends. It wasn't like a bitchy girl thing. Same with Irene and Nezrin. Like, apart from that awkward, like, no, we're both kind of screwing the same guy, was weird, but there was no girl hate, which I super appreciated. As for like all of the sons, I think like the eldest son, I don't even know what his name is, no, I didn't care about him. Sartak, I didn't really care about. Like, he was cool. I pictured him for some reason as like Khal Drogo, and like the whole of like the Ruck Riders were like the Dothraki in my mind. I don't know why. I think someone mentioned it on like Twitter and I was like, okay, that'll stick. Kashin, again, I liked, but was like a character that I was like, yeah, you're really kind of pointless. And that whole weird romance with Irene, I was like, you're super pointless. I think there was another brother in there as well that I'm just like, I don't care. I feel like I knew something was up with Duva like the second we were introduced to her, and she was just like the chill one on the side. I did think that like her husband would have had more to do with like the evil stuff, but obviously it was just Parrington who sent the ring. So I did kind of think that was where it was going. Hey baby, this is Trick, he's decided to join us. But I didn't care too much about, I didn't care too much about them in general. As far as Chaol's healing story, you can't stand on the cat. I like the way it ended, I guess, with him not being completely healed. I like that. A lot of who Chaol was based on being the captain of the guard or being a soldier, and obviously his body was his weapon, and for him to, I guess, lose that ability was a huge deal for him, and then to, I guess, find a way to get it back and to have it back but not perfect. I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's just going to be like a rediscovery of that. And then for the big battle at the end where he then lost it all over again as a sacrifice, and for his now, like, his life is now linked to Irene's life, and if one of them dies, the other one dies, and if Irene's powers are depleted, then he has to use his chair. I was like, why? But I do like that he's not completely healed. Like, it wasn't like, oh no, this huge horrible thing has happened, but oh, look at that, he's all fine now, no problem. I know it's going to come into play quite a lot in the next book, I'm assuming. Like, that's a kind of a cool plot point. Like, you know, imagine if Irene is completely zonked out of magic and Chaol has to then go and, I mean, he can't do anything. I'm interested to see how, like, the tied life thing plans out. Like, it makes me wonder if they're gonna die, or one of them's gonna die, or that's gonna become fixed. I don't know. Like, I feel like it wouldn't have been done without a reason. Like, I know that the reason was to just keep Chaol alive, but I feel like it could possibly become something else. I'm gonna go ahead and say that my favorite chapter in the whole book was Fireheart. So, like, the prologue? The bit at the end where it was just Aelin. Like, that reminds me, like, that little prologue reminded me how much I do love Aelin. Like, I did not like her in Queen of Shadows, and I did not like her in Empire of Storms. But it reminds me of earlier Aelin. It reminds me of Air of Fire Aelin is what I'm going for. Like, that deep sort of dark, twisty, I don't know, I liked it. That was my favorite part in the whole book. So, I mean, in terms of my thoughts for the next book, I mean, obviously it's the big finale, the big battle. We're gonna have all these characters together. I mean, like, Lysandra now has an uncle. Cool, but also, like, necessary. So we've got two shapeshifters now. I'm glad that obviously there's more firepower, I guess, coming to Aelin's side. Interesting to find out that Maeve is actually a Valg queen. Kind of weird that it was left to, like, the last book, the last, like, second book. Like, if people don't read Tower of Dawn, they don't know that until the next book. There's also Valg princesses, so I'm kind of like, cool, but, like, is there, like, a whole world of Valg, or is it just, like, these main few and some shitty, like, monster guards? I don't know. I don't care. So that was kind of, like, fun to hear about, like, Maeve and her, like, drama. I kind of vibe that Irene can save people who have been infected by the Valg. I think that's kind of cool. I don't know how it's going to go in terms of, like, big fixes. Like, it obviously takes a lot out of her just doing, like, a single person. So I don't know how it's going to go with, like, you know, the soldiers who have been taken by Valg. Who knows? So I guess those are kind of all my thoughts and feelings on Tower of Dawn at this stage. I mean, I'm sure if you follow me on Twitter, like, my mind will change like 100 times before the next book. I guess I'm kind of excited for the next book. I do care more about Aelin than I care about, like, any of the other characters at this point. Although, I'm all for Manon. Like, 10 out of 10 Manon and Aedion, I'm all for. those are my thoughts and feelings on Tower of Dawn. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Yeah, I'm interested to see what people think of this book. Like, they'll either love it or they'll either hate it, or they'll just hate it on principle because they're those kinds of people, or they'll love it on principle because they're those kinds of people. Sarah J Maas's books, especially the Throne of Glass series, have probably got me thinking most as a reader. Like, they've definitely had a huge impact on me as a reader. Like, reading them for face value, the first few, I was like, these are great, and then discovering, I guess, more of the fandom and even the anti-fandom when they go and kind of explain points. Like, you know, there was like the lack of diversity in the first few books, and I mean now, like, I feel like she's actively trying. There were more diverse characters in this book, but it's a step in the right direction. Obviously, I'm not the person to talk to on all of those sorts of things. So the only one thing that kind of irked me is like Hasha, the princess, whatever, she had a female lover, and I feel like every time that we were introduced to Haza or the lover that they came up, it was like, she's a lover and she's a girl. She's got a female lover. Like, look at her female lover. I was like, cool. Like, I appreciated it, but also chill. I didn't forget it within the last like 15 pages that she's got a girlfriend. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I will catch you guys next time. Also, feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy that sort of content. I don't know. That's what professional YouTubers do, so I thought I'd give it a try. Okay, bye.